Hello, welcome. Hello, Joy. Hey, Ragnar.
Hi.
Hello, wonderful
How's
to
it
see you.
going today? Everybody doing well?
Oh yes.
Prepping for Thanksgiving.
I know it was surprised at like how fast it turned from summer to winter this year, but it's full on November.
Yeah, there was no autumn in
5 p.m.
Oklahoma.
and it's black. It's so dark outside. I cannot see anything outside of my window. It's frightening.
There's that too. But I'm just surprised. Like I honestly was wearing a t-shirt, walking the dog one day. The next day there was snow on the ground. I woke up in the morning.
Oh.
It melted off like first thing. But the
I have
fact
to
that
think
there
about.
was a layer of snow.
That's crazy.
Please take care of your dog, because when you take your little dog out of
No, he has his
snow,
sweater collection.
he's going to freeze at some very precious parts of his body.
No, folks, you know, I have, yeah. He
I'm
has his
blushing at this
sweaters.
story.
No. My dog very much. He knows. He's the boss of himself. He knows that he goes outside. If it's raining at all, he goes out. He touches the ground because he's completely blind, and he's just like, nope, and then just turns around, and goes right back in the house. He's like, I'll do that stuff later.
Yeah, my little dog is very precious in that way. She's like, these paws don't get wet. The big dog, he doesn't care.
Yeah. Well, welcome everyone to Guardians of M365 Governance. This is episode 11. Wow, we're rounding out the first year of the show. Remember when Ragnar and I kicked this off? We did our pre-launch in December last year. So yeah, full circle, exciting. And this series is a monthly webcast focused on the rapidly evolving and expanding Microsoft 365 governance story. And our goal here is to share insights, best practices, and the latest information about new governance features and capabilities within Microsoft 365. So it's dedicated to anything and everything governance within Microsoft 365. So if you have questions or comments or thoughts about what should cover or guests we should have on the show, please comment. And the latest is our guest for episode 11 is somebody that Ragnar has worked with. And I want you to introduce the topic and our guest.
Yes, I'm very excited to have the topic Taming the Chaos, Enhancing Audit and Compliance with EasyLife 65 and HanseVision at Munich Airport, one of our beloved airports here in Germany. And our guest for today is the collaboration consultant here from the company where I'm working, HanseVision. And welcome on stage, Ben-David Piepenburg.
Yeah, thanks, Ragnar. Thanks for having me tonight. And yeah, I really appreciate to be here.
Welcome.
Great to have you.
Wonderful.
Excited to hear more about what you guys have been working on behind the scenes.
That was a very intense project. So, Ben, could you please start and tell us a little bit about the Munich Airport, about all the challenges they had, all the things they were struggling, because the project which we had different parts, but today we're going to focus on the governance part and not on the other subjects. So please tell us a little bit more about the context. What were their main and biggest pain points? Where did they struggle? Why they needed help? Why they asked us? So give us a little bit of an introduction. What happened at Munich Airport before you joined?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, as it was a great project, was a long project, as you already said. And maybe Christian, can you start the slides? So
yeah.
This is usually how it works when we go in those kind of projects. We have here the focus on teams collaboration, and we know there's a lot going on around. So we have all this, and we have this decision for M365. There are a lot of people working on it and bring everything to the start, and this could take quite a while. And when we have a look on Teams collaboration, we usually go standard ways, like you can see here. So when we have this decision to go for M365, we start with gathering collaboration use cases. We have kind of a standard step up there, usually some specific situations. So we need to talk about that. And we also need to go to all these compliance departments, governance departments, security departments, and get all those specific demands together. And this takes quite a while, as you can imagine. Yeah, and then when we are at that point, we are creating a concept and focus on the gather demands and not so much on technical aspects, because we just want to have a good concept that will work with any technology at least.
Mhm.
And then we are at a very critical point. So we need to choose technology, because we at this point we usually have a lot of demands in governance and compliance that we can solve just with Microsoft 365 standard products. So we need like user interaction, like lifecycle management, and we need a lot of customers say we have a lot of possibilities in M365, but it's very, very complex. Like when you scope out and go to Power Platform, for example, there you have this how is it called again? This Power Platform
Center of Excellence.
Center of Excellence. Yeah,
Mhm.
that was
Yeah.
the word that I was moving. Center of Excellence, very complex, and you need quite a while to get into this. And yeah, so and it's pretty complex, and you need sometimes a smarter solution, and which is better to handle. And like this, we were at that point with Teams collaboration, and we needed functions, and we need easy functions, and so we needed technology. You can choose. There is a bunch of third-party solutions where you can choose from, and we had a look on several tools, and you can also have a look if you can build it by your own, like something with Power Platform or so. But usually this governance things are things that the problems that many companies have. So the third-party solutions are a really good choice at this point.
How can I ask you,
Yeah.
how was the company's approach to, how was the airport's approach to Power Platform solutions over prepackaged, like third-party solutions, like pre-built? Is it a mixture of both things? Are they emphasizing we'd rather have our people build solutions and manage those, or do they want it to be more of a packaged and turnkey?
The Power Platform thing was a general example, actually. I can't talk too much about Power Platform about Munich Airport, because I wasn't into that at the airport. But in general, I know that some third-party developers are working on solutions for the Power Platform, or already have some tools to make it easier to run this system in a compliant way.
Well, I have to say, looking at your chart here, your diagram, well done, Christian. We've really got to get on the ball and get that applause sound effect.
I know. I thought about it too.
We need that, because the first thing my eyes saw on this chart, you talked about getting the requirements for governance and compliance, and you talked to people. Focus on gathered demands, not as much of the technical aspects, right? You needed to find out what the people needed, how they worked. Being at the airport, of course, security, compliance, regulations, all that's going to be top of mind and impacting how people work day in and day out. But well done on talking to the people first, then finding the technology that could meet those needs. Applause, applause, applause.
That's the right sequence, yeah.
Absolutely. There's a way it should be like, yeah.
Yes, every
David,
time.
yeah. David, could you please share a bit more about the challenge they had before they went into use cases and scenarios? You know, which kind of real pain issues did they want to get solved?
So we didn't have that classical issues, because the entrance point at the airport was we started like new with M365.
Okay.
And I think we have other customers there. We also can start with this circle but then the starting point is not the decision for M365. It's more like we have M365, we already implemented Teams collaboration, and there are like tons of teams, and nobody knows who has created them, if they are still needed. How can we get rid of those teams? And storage is like running over, and yeah, but we haven't had this at the airport because we just started new, so we were able to create everything from scratch at M365 issues or things, and so
Well done.
like,
So that way you're going to go into it controlled from the start.
Yeah.
And not have some of those headaches that seem to plague our friends in the community that have been there more in the wild west implementation instead of coming out with governance first.
Yeah.
It is amazing how much baggage that we tend to bring over versus like a greenfield environment where they're new to the different things. They're more willing to listen to the experts, understand some of the history, and not go and repeat a lot of those mistakes, which kind of leads to my next question, Ben, is like about, when planning out governance of this new system, did you run into any problem areas of concern from the organization? Maybe 2 or 3 of your top, the problem areas that you made sure to address or are still addressing.
Good question. Usually it's like we have long talks about like how should the life cycle be managed, what should be included into life cycle management, and it needs and one thing is we need to get everyone in the boat, and everyone should understand what we are talking about. This needs quite a while so that we have everyone with us.
I can imagine there's a lot of change going from whatever that previous system was, whether it was file shares on-prem or a Google ecosystem. In my consulting days, I saw a little bit of everything. And I think just the concept of the change can be one of the hardest things to overcome for people. If you're going to be working in a very different way, what was your approach for kind of giving people comfort in totally changing their work processes?
So we were very close with change user adoption team and enterprise communications. So we have like a lot of meetings, regular meetings scheduled once a week or every 2 weeks, so that we are good with communications and prepare the users for all these changes. And this is very important, at least.
Yeah, wonderful.
Well, that's I like how you described that too, that it's you can't treat a project like this strictly as a technical project. It's not, you're not just deploying software, but you have to approach it. It sounds like you did, like, organically, like this is a business problem first. And we often talk about, understanding the scope before you try to solve the problem. As best you can. I realize that some projects, it moves very quickly, and through your experience, be like, I identify what the problem is. Here's what we need to go and do. But that's one of the mistakes that we make in general, especially those of us that are on the IT side. We jump to solution so quick, and sometimes we fail to complete the conversation portion of it, the planning, the setup,
because we think also that we know the solution, so we interrupt the process because we think that we know, as an experts, we know what's right. But people want to get involved. People want to get involved in discussions, in conversations, in decisions. They want to get into the participation process. And when we open this room for discussions, and then finally maybe we get to the same kind of results as we would give them as an expert, like 4 weeks in advance. But now the acceptance is much higher because the results and the decisions are coming from the customers and from the users. And then we create the value that governance is understood as a value, because otherwise, it's another hurdle, another thing. What do we have to do? We already have so much on our desk. We are already so busy. Now we have to care about governance. But if we would invest this extra time to bring them into these thinking processes, then they would understand the value of governance.
Yeah.
And that's big progress.
And making it not a burden, having those tools that are out there, whether it's homegrown automations, Ben, like you mentioned, with Power Automate, or choosing a third-party solution. If you can make it painless for the end user, that can definitely help, because it's already a lot coming at them every day.
And you absolutely you need a good UI if you're using like these governance tools. You need things that work out well and that are easy to use for all these people who needs to use it. And it's so important. And EasyLife is providing this very good UI, and it's easy to use. You don't need to too much. I don't know the word.
Say it in German.
Ausbildung.
Education. Yeah.
Education.
Yeah.
So you don't need that much education for EasyLife, for the users. They can just use it and can start with it and do good things.
Yeah.
But I think this is one of the quintessences. So I think governance is could be a peacemaker, because sometimes the user always want more. They want more workspaces, more rooms. They want more Teams and SharePoint and more licenses. And the IT wants to regulate and control things. And sometimes there is a conflict existing in the room between the end users with the freedom and then what IT wants to control. And governance finally is the peacemaker, where they listen. Both can be happy. We're going to create a win-win situation where both are happy, with control processes, with provisioning, and so on. And I think that's a beautiful story. I think that's what we all need, that we balance these conflicts and solve things.
I think governance has gotten a bad rap over the last however many billions of years it's been around.
20 years that I've been in space. Yeah.
Because in the olden days, we didn't have as many ways to automate it or make it painless. So it ended up being a group or a committee, or like the governance little g god that went around and hit people over the head with the rules. Said, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, or no, you can't do that, you can't do that. It doesn't have to be that way anymore. Ragnar, to your point, it can be a unifying thing. Yes, you can create what you need when you need it, not have to wait a week for IT to get around to it. There's going to be streamlined, and there's going to be a way to make sure you're not creating the 11th HR team, because that's chaos.
Well, it also controls, the shadow IT, the rogue IT efforts. If you have open lines of communication, if you have the feedback loops in place, that's actually a question for the project. Is like, ongoing. How are you collecting information? How often are you reaching out to end users, to the various stakeholders, to get feedback on what's been deployed? The ongoing change management. Like, what did you set up to make sure that you're continuing to listen going forward?
Yep. Ben-David, I've got a question. When you talked about the process of creating use cases with the customer in these workshops, which of the use cases were the most relevant ones? Is there something which was more important than others, or are they just on an equal level?
It's like, maybe we can show the slides again. So we have this on the second slide. I just switched to that. These are the usual use cases we have in a lot of projects. This is what we start with, and this is a good start. You don't need too much specific things, because it makes the environment more complex. But yeah, when you start, you have like organizational teams, organizational structure teams. You have like teams for topics like key user community or governance experts, whatever. You also have these projects. For that, you can also use teams like for the project M365 implementation. And then you have this perspective that's not directly for teams, that more for OneDrive or Exchange. It's like the personal user data storage and the one-on-one data exchange. And this is what we start with. And when we have a look at the other fields that are not already filled, we need to answer all these questions. Every field is one question, so we need to know, or we know that on ongoing collaboration and organizational structure, we can use Teams. This is very good for that. But we also need a solution for long-term storage. It's maybe the answer is maybe not Teams, or it is usually not Teams. And we sometimes also need something for legal compliant archiving. And this for every use case you see there. And then you go on, like you need also have a look on the confidential level, or even on file types. Not every file can be stored in SharePoint or Teams, so you also need to have an answer for that. And then we are not only in Teams collaboration, this is like more a roadmap for, or a map for, a lot of collaboration systems that work all together. And sometimes we have more than one answer for one field, so we need to define why in which situation which technology should be used. So yeah, these are the use cases we start with, and sometimes we refine that and find even more.
I like it because it really shows the customer journey and the customer roadmap, where they can move on, especially with pure view sensitivity labels and confidential data and archiving topics, backup topics. I like it. Do you want to add something, or you would like to jump to the next slide? I think there are
we can jump to the next slide. I think there's a lot all being said. So, and then we usually talk about additional security measures for teams. So we usually have, the most of the teams don't need a very high standard of security, but some teams need this higher standards. For example, there are some teams that shouldn't be, they shouldn't be able to invite guest users, or there should be very often access review, or it shouldn't be allowed to be public. And there we need to protect the users so that they don't accidentally put a high security team on public, for example. So these are very important things we need to talk about, and we need to address all these things and make teams even more secure.
Can I just say that again? This goes back to making sure that you're having conversations with your end users, because personal experience is that most companies get the external sharing wrong. That they're, and when I say wrong, meaning not that they're like they're turning it on or off, that they're actually enforcing the policy in place, is that they're not understanding what their end users actually need to get done, and they're not providing sufficient solutions. In most, like in my experience, where I say they're getting it wrong, organizations are more likely just to lock down external sharing, which then what happens? Joy, what happens when I need to share externally and my company says, no, you cannot share externally? What happens?
Well, that's just when you do it anyway.
Right.
AKA shadow IT.
Yeah. Share large files that should be secure via email.
People are so educated, they know so many different ways how to get through.
Yeah. So that's where, if you're having the conversation, if you've got those feedback loops in place, where you need to be aware that you've done your best deploying a solution, but if you're not actively listening to the feedback from users around this, then you can make mistakes like that, not understand what their actual needs are, and force their hand so that they feel they have to go around the process.
Because they have to do their job, because
Right.
you get fired if you don't do your job. but I don't have the tools that I need that IT has said, thou mayest useth this. So you got to go find something else to use. But again, if I had an applause button, I'd hit it again for Ben and his team, because the first thing they did, well, one of the first things they did is they talked to the users to make sure, like, hey, who needs to do what? Get those requirements up front. Then you can plan for that. Well done, Ben.
You can do your best to ask them what they think they need at
Well,
that point. But then what happens, and then they get the new technology, it expands their vision of what's possible. And they have requests that come later. So if you've, and I'm not suggesting that you guys did this with the airport, that you stopped listening. Like, no, we followed like the waterfall method for the project, took the requirements, built it out, and delivered what you asked for at the beginning, never listened again. But that's kind of the point.
You can't be done with the technology anymore. But I saw the last thing on Ben's slide was to go back and revisit and continue making it better.
Because the life cycle is broken, and life cycle means we need loops and feedback loop, and we need to iterate. But now usually the life cycle is broken. People ask for new teams in SharePoint side. They ask for provisioning, but then they don't care about deleting and archiving and tidying up, and that's the reason why we need governance. And the good thing is it's not much more work for IT, because when they're using especially third-party tools like EasyLife, like Orchestrate, then there's a very good chance that you give more responsibility to the power users, to the end users who requested these SharePoint sites and teams and Viva Engage communities, because they ask for it, and then they also have to take care that they do a monthly access review, which in the very best case, I don't know, Joy, you also have very easy to use tools, then it takes just 1 minute or maybe 2 minutes to do the access review and add people or remove people and add owner and members and so on. So it's just a minimal time effort, but you get a very, very higher quality, which is super important for security, for compliance, for co-pilot readiness, but also to keep the workplace a little bit cleaner. And then the user adoption is also going to increase. So you just do a single action, which takes like 1 or 2 minutes, and you've got multiple benefits or multiple different logical levels. But it's all about empowering the user by giving them the possibility to do access reviews.
Now, you just said a triggering phrase, and I'm going to get passionate for a second, so I got to take my glasses off. Okay, empowering the end user. So I know we're going to have some admin type personalities out there. I can be one. I get it. I hear you. And you're like, do what for the who? IT cannot be in charge of deciding when something gets archived. You can give guidelines around storage footprint, costs, cold storage, all the things, but we can't, and I don't want to as an IT person. I don't want to have to be in charge of knowing when employee files versus project files versus finance and contracts and security documentation. I can't know when and how every department in the organization should dispose of or archive their content. It's too much. Let the end users who know the rules and the compliance have the voice and be in charge of saying, okay, this needs to go to cold storage for 7 years.
One of my favorite things are providing that reporting to end users of here's what you have. This is what you're spending, especially if you have an organization that is trying to do like a chargeback model that's trying to, internally charge for the IT services, the centralized IT, just to understand the costs of what each business unit is consuming there. But you often have that kind of reporting where you go and share and say, look, here's the number of sites that you have, the volume of storage, here's the activity, the reports around that, and then have conversations around that. Talk about the usage of sensitive content, confidential content, whatever it is, how you've applied your labeling around that, and that again through those conversations helps them better understand. That's doesn't make sense. Why do we have this rapidly growing number of sites, and yet the usage of these is dropping off. Why?
Mhm.
What's going on here? It's like, we've given you the process, we've given you the guardrails, you're not applying this. This is what we would recommend, but you have to make the decision.
Yeah.
Ben-David, talking about the recommendations, could you also see some things which have changed after introducing governance at the Munich Airport?
At the end, we have more work for the end users, because we now have technology to give a hint that you need to do an access review, you need to do like life cycle management on your data, and there's much more workload, and organizations need to get used to that. They need to maybe change processes, business processes. And it's kind of a lot of work when a project ends, and now we want the project owner to sort out all the files and to archive or to delete the team, and we want him to change or to put all the data that needs to be stored long term to other storages. It's kind of a time-consuming process, and we need this awareness also in the companies that there's a little bit more workload, because we now do things that we maybe haven't done before, but we need to do it because we have some legal reasons for that. So this is maybe a big change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Anything else you would, because looking now, I'm going into the timekeeper role. We are 32 minutes here. Anything else which is important for you, Ben-David, from the project, which you would like to highlight?
I really liked working together with EasyLife 365. We were able to address a lot of our demands, and together with M365 standard products, we have all a very good set of compliance and governance and technologies. And one thing that worked out very good was, like, we can talk to EasyLife, and we brought in things from practice, and we said, hey, we need this thing as well. And then it didn't take a while. It was a very short period, and then we had to change the product. So like some episodes before, I heard this thing in Guardians of the Governance. You were talking about the difference between rights in M365 groups and SharePoint rights, like users in M365 groups or members are not able to add other members, but on SharePoint side they were in the standard setting. And we also talked with EasyLife about that, and now it took like a few weeks, and then they gave us a possibility to put that into provisioning actions, and this is really great. So it's a good developing product, and it was really nice to work there at the airport, to work with EasyLife. It was a great time at the end.
Oh, that's great. It's those kinds of partnerships and relationships are so valuable.
It is, yeah. Otherwise, it's so important, especially when projects get into a critical situation. You need a very strong relationship to the vendor, because then you can make things possible. They can prioritize the internal roadmap and let the customer shine and do things. So this is the most important key, that you have a good relationship. Yeah.
It's also to point out too, for folks that are looking at, says, why doesn't Microsoft build the features in? I'll tell you, it's so much easier for an ISV, for a partner solution, to add that features, add the capability, and in most cases will out innovate Microsoft, especially in an area like governance, on top of the out of the box capabilities. But it's much quicker turnaround for a partner than it is for Microsoft to go and add those features in. Even living in this evergreen world where they're constantly making changes to the core platform, the base features, it's still that the partner solutions, in my experience, can out innovate Microsoft there.
Well, it's like a giant game of, is it Jenga or Jenga? How do you say it? I don't know. Right.
Jenga. Yes.
You've got that huge, so if you poke here, You could collapse the whole thing. Can you imagine trying to just take all of M365 and all of its legacy code?
Are you trying to say that Microsoft 365 is like a patchwork of blocks where things that are hanging at a balance that could collapse at any moment? Is that what you're saying, Joy?
Let's circle back to this conversation during Ignite Week.
Yeah.
When buttons will
I think this
randomly
is a
show up and
completely
go
new
away.
episode we need to record because all the dependencies which are completely known and working with SharePoint in so many years, we all know the ugliness of dependencies. And
It's a bit. It can be. I realize this, and it's one of the complaints about the space is that it's a bit of a Frankenstein product. But honestly, you go back and you look at
Way worse
any
than Frankenstein.
enterprise scale solution that has been around and is built and over time and grown. So that is fairly consistent. I mean, you can go and completely re-architect the product for every version, but then you're getting back to your 3 to 5 year cycle to be able to go and do that every time.
Yeah. I mean, it's complicated. It's a very large, complicated ecosystem, which is all I was saying, Christian.
Okay. I was just gonna say, like, I personally would not have gone with the Jenga comparison.
No, you went Frankenstein, which I
I know, but that I've heard other Microsoft people refer to it that way.
Oh,
So
sure. Mm-hmm. Who?
by the way,
I'll email you later the names.
for everybody who would like to go deeper into the case studies, they are now published at EasyLife365.cloud in English. They're in the customer reference story, and at HanseVision.com in our blog, everything is written in German, so you can choose depending on the language you understand. But there you'll find the official PDF from the customer success story.
We'll find that. We'll add that out to the blog and to YouTube and everything, so you'll be able to find those resources here after the show. So awesome. I love this is our, I guess this is our first like case study episode. We're actually looking at talking about a project. So I'd say we'd love to do more like this, if I can speak for the team here. But here's where you can find us. Please reach out and talk to us. And if you have a story where especially you did something that you're very proud of around the governance space and would like to highlight as kind of a case study for the show, we'd love to have you. We also have our Facebook group that you can find. It's a little quiet over there as with the, we launched it at the beginning of the year, but it's a place where you can, again, go and share references and stories and ask questions. And then, of course, anywhere via social that accepts a hashtag, recognizes a hashtag, use the Go M365 Gov and tag us, and we'll see it. We'll find it. I've got little listening devices out there looking for the hashtag, so I get notifications when the hashtag is used. So please, yes,
Wait, I will do it. I'm still on X.
Yep.
Even I'm not the biggest Musk supporter, but I love it so much, so I cannot quit.
I'm not giving it up. So. But Ben, really appreciate you for joining us for the show, and everybody for staying up late and it's great to have you, and Joy and Ragnar, as always, thanks, and we'll be back for another episode to close out the year. And we've got plans for a January show and kick things off with an ISV partner and fellow MVP who's been in this space for a long time. So we've got the next 2-3 months planned out. We're very excited. So very excited also to hear customer stories here from Joy and from Orchestry. Have her CEO maybe in the show very soon.
Maybe.
Maybe.
So.
Spoiler alert.
Thank you again for joining us. Great work.
Yeah.
So good.
Wonderful.
Well, thanks everybody. We'll catch you in the next episode. See you next month. Bye.
Bye.